Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jorge Perez. I'm the Executive Director of HACIA, the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association, and I want to welcome you to our annual transportation panel that's put together by our Professional Services Committee. We are broadcasting live from what we call the HACIA Studios, located at 650 West Lake Street in beautiful Chicago, Illinois. You've heard over the past few months that we've shifted over to this new platform for ourselves because of the pandemic. And what we're actually using is our retrofitted training center, or HACIA U Conference Center here in our building. We do have a couple of announcements, and we'll walk you through what we expect for this afternoon. Many of you had joined us in the past for this session, and it's been very productive and effective for us as we get quite a look forward to what's happening in the engineering space here in Illinois. And our panelists, we really appreciate them participating this year because it is very effective for us to do this. So I do want to let everyone know that this event is put together by our Professional Services Committee, and that's chaired by Gerardo Sanchez, who is the president and owner of Sanchez and Associates. Unfortunately, he's still on a site right now, doing a job. I don't know for who, but I know it's one of these individuals who are the panelists, and he will join us hopefully as soon as he possibly can, but the show must go on, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time, and so we're going to keep moving forward. So we're going to just do a couple of quick announcements and then introduce all of our panelists, and then we'll go through the Q&A with them. After we're done, as we promoted, we will offer one-on-one sessions with some of the panelists and or some of their teammates, and that's going to be coordinated by our staff. So I got to give kudos to our director, executive producer, writer, and all of our, what we call them, production assistants, which is pretty much the other staff here at HACIA. So Cristina Aguirre, Froylan Nunez, and Juan Calajorano, who are here in the studio helping us out. But also want to give a big thanks to our HACIA board members. Definitely want to thank Ivan Solis, our board president, and our executive committee as well. We also want to thank you, HACIA members, for your support and your membership to HACIA. We know you have choices to make in terms of where your dollars go and where you invest and where you want to be engaged with more in terms of membership. And we really appreciate you picking HACIA. And for many of you who have been longstanding members, a big thank you as well. So again, we're going to get started. What I want to do very quickly is give kudos and thank you to all of our sponsors for today's event. I think this is the 10th year going now where we've had strong support for this event. What you see here on the slide are the sponsors of today's event. And most, if not all, are Professional Services Committee members. So thank you very much for your support. I won't go through each one of those, but it is something that we will continue to promote via social media and this event. So again, thank you for your support. It really is truly appreciated as it helps HACIA with our day-to-day operations. Thank you. All right, so we're going to get started with a quick intro of our panelists today, and then we're going to get going with our questions. So before we do that, though, we do have a couple of guests. One thing that's a constant is whenever there's a need for leadership, there's always change, or vice versa. And we do have a new chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, and it's someone who actually has been very supportive of our efforts at HACIA, particularly our legislative efforts on the advocacy side of what we do, and that's Senator Ram Villavalam. We also have coming on, I don't know if he's on yet, but we also have, so just get a note that we do have him on. Wait, let me do this because this is always fun. Just then, we do have Chairman Evans on as well. Marcus Evans is the House Transportation Chairman as well, and we're very thankful that he's joining us. We do want to leave the floor open to both of these individuals elected to speak, as they do play a critical role in the transportation space. And so, Senator Villavalam, if you can, floor is yours, sir. We'd love for you to make a statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you to you and the HACIA board for putting this together and inviting me to participate. And thank you for all the things that you all do to advocate on behalf of DBEs and MBEs in Springfield. I've enjoyed meeting with you all and learning. It's always good to do these with Chairman Evans because he makes it look like I'm on time. So I always appreciate that. It is good to see you, Chairman, as well. I also want to extend a thank you to the panelists that you have here today, the agency folks. They are the ones that are day in and day out trying to continue to make our roads, bridges, and mass transit safe for the 12.5 million people in the state of Illinois. They have a very tall task in front of them. And so I want to thank them for their work. It's great to be with you all. My name is Ron Villivolum, as has been mentioned, State Senator, 8th District, which includes 21 neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, from Albany Park to West Rogers Park, and the suburbs of Cook County, Lincolnwood, Skokie, Niles, Morton Grove, Glenview, and unincorporated Des Plaines. I became chair of transportation earlier this year, and I'll just shortly say that my focus has been transparency, data, and diversity and equity. Those have been my North Stars in terms of how we approach our transportation and infrastructure system, and how we approach the issues that are facing us, and how we implement the historic and sustainable capital plan, that $33.2 billion capital plan that we passed last year in the Illinois General Assembly. And so I've been working on these issues for the past year. I look forward to continue to work on them. We have a lot of work to do. There have been things that are going incredibly well, and there are things that can be done better. And so we always look to improve and make progress, and I'm willing to be a part of those conversations. And so with that, I will keep it brief, and I'm happy to take questions at a later point if that's part of this, but appreciate the opportunity and look forward to working with everyone.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Villivolum. Chairman Evans, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much to my constituent, Jorge Perez, and all the great work of HACIA, and just adding on to the great senator. You know, in the House, we frequently change our committee chairmanship. You know, I chair transportation, I currently chair labor and commerce, but I sit on all of the transportation committees because I can tell you all anything. But one of my priorities is the growth of transportation. We must put our money where our mouth is and invest in infrastructure growth. We want to help minorities. Transportation businesses and businesses in the transportation sector have shown to produce great opportunities for minority business folks, and to spurn those opportunities out to even more through subcontracting and other ways. So we know that transportation works, but we just have to make it a priority. I'm demonstrating that, and Senator Villivolum is demonstrating that transportation is our priority amongst all of the things we must do. And I really like to thank all of the great folks who execute our requests. You know, as a politician, we say we want XYZ bridge, or we appropriate XYZ, and then we walk away and we go on to education and every other issue. And I'm looking at the people on here, from John Yonan to Dan Burke to Anthony Quigley. I mean, all of the big shots in transportation. I mean, you all for years, of course, you, Gia, in the city, you all execute our crazy requests. So thank you for your work. And just know that you have politicians like us who remain committed to transportation growth. It's the hope that we got a new president in who will take the nation's focus to transportation, because I believe for many, many years, we've discussed education, criminal justice reform, and we've not as a country, or even as a state, and I continue to preach this to the governor's office, that we must give our folks in IDOT, give our folks in CDOT the tools and the resources and the focus that they need to take the transportation space where it needs to go. And I'll continue to beat that drum. And of course, I'm available to answer any questions. Even though we got the experts in, my advocacy remains strong. In the new General Assembly, I'll push hard for transportation growth. And of course, you know, being a Black man, the mission of HACIA for minorities will always be my mission. A lot of times I'm asked how I feel about minority contracts, and it's a very confusing question, because as a minority, I want to see more inclusion and growth in IDOT and CDOT and every other dot that's out there around the country. We want to see more women, we want to see more minority-owned businesses, and we want to spread the wealth of opportunity in the transportation industry to every culture and to every space. So, and thank you for HACIA for for taking that wish and hope of me and Senator Rahm and executing that. You know, we create a program, or we say we want more of X, Y, and Z to get the opportunities. You still got to execute those applications. You still got to execute that plan. So thank you, HACIA, for taking the mission and making it real to get real results. So thank you all. And again, it's just a joy to be here today.
Thank you, Chairman Evans. Appreciate it very much. All right, so now we're going to go on and introduce our panelists for this afternoon, and then we'll get to the Q&A. So we call them the Big Four. So we got IDOT, CDOT, the Tollway, and the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. From IDOT, we have Secretary of Transportation Omar Osman. Welcome. We also have from IDOT Region 1 Engineer Anthony Quigley. From CDOT, the Chicago Department of Transportation, we have Commissioner Gia Biaggi. We also have Deputy Commissioner Chief Engineer Dan Burke. And we also have First Deputy Commissioner Tom Carney. From the Tollway, we have Executive Director Jose Alvarez. We also have Chief Engineer Paul Kovacs. And we also have Chief of Diversity and Strategic Development Terry Miller. And from the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways, Superintendent John Yonan, who says that he's moving on, and the new person that's going to be taking his role is actually joining us as well. And that's Jennifer Sis-Killen, who currently is going to be moving from Assistant Superintendent to Superintendent. So welcome and kudos to you, Jennifer, for your new assignment, and also to you, John, as well. Definitely look forward to working you on that side of the construction world as well. Well, welcome to all of our panelists. And again, thank you for making the time to join us this afternoon. And at this point, we'll just get going with the questions. Again, these questions were put together by our committee, and we'll basically jump around a little bit from each agency. And if there's a theme there, we'll probably stick to it. We want to try our best to make it very engaging. Chairman Villavallen, Chairman Evans, if you had questions as well while we're in there, please feel free to jump in. But at this point, we'll get started. All right, so the first question is for IDOT. All right, so IDOT, in terms of the agency's biggest challenge, what do you think the biggest challenge is over the next 6 years, and how can consulting and the consulting industry help? And what actions are you doing to prepare for the next several years?
Well, great question, Jorge. And thank you for inviting us, and inviting me, Antonia, and the rest of the panelists. A couple of things I wanted to say, Jorge, before I get into the question is,
sure.
Listen, we have a capital bill, and like I have never seen a capital bill that of this size, and I have been with the department for over 30 years now. This is historic by any measure of imagination. It took the leadership of the governor, his dedication, his focus, and also the leadership and the foresight of our elected legislators. Two of the champions of infrastructure are on the panel today, and for that I'd like to say thank you, Chairman Villavallen, thank you, Chairman Evans, for giving us the ability to be where we are today. We are extremely excited at the department, and we have, I'd like to say in a lot of my speech that the department is back in the business of truly building a transportation system that is going to be the envy of the nation. We are blessed in so many ways. A couple of things that is very apparent to me. As a department, we can't do it by ourselves. We truly rely on our consultant partner. Without you guys, without the consultant partner, we can't deliver a program of this size. It's just impossible. It is more so right now for two reasons: because of the size of the program, and because of the pandemic, and where we are today with the COVID-19 pandemic. The need is extremely acute right now. On the engineering side, and I know the focus is on the engineering side. I always say two things. Construction is going to happen. The timing of that construction is going to depend on how efficient are we on the engineering side. So 3 things we typically talk about at the department is scope, schedule, and budget. A priority of mine is that is schedule. The schedule dictates the budget. The scope itself obviously dictates the budget. So it is incumbent upon us, and this is where I'm imploring HACIA, ACEC, the rest of the industry, to keep us on track. I need that budget. I need us to stick to the budget that we have prescribed. If we ever going to deliver this program in an efficient way, it's all about the budget. The scope might vary here and there, but typically the scope stays intact. But if we get the budget and the scope figured, if we get the schedule and the scope figured out, the budget will take care of itself. So that's where I see the industry is helping us. I know we are hiring engineer, especially at the trainee level, but we really need the experience and the dedication of the consulting engineering firm from the outside and their foresight to help us deliver, especially the bigger program. One thing I would like to add before we move on is, from my perspective, sitting here in Springfield with an office in Chicago, District 1 typically get the lion's share of the budget, and rightfully so. That's the Chicago area. That's the most urbanized area. But IDOT is not just District 1. We have 9 districts. The industry could help us through all 9 districts. If you look at all our PTBs, it's almost, each and every district at least have 2 or 3 items on our PTB. So I would like the industry to focus statewide and not to pigeonhole themselves into one district. That would be very helpful to us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Secretary. Okay, next question is for Cook County. Some public agencies use a 2-step process to solicit proposals from consultants, typically consisting of an initial letter of interest and followed by a more detailed proposal only from the shortlisted teams. Would Cook County be interested in considering a similar process, which could save time for the firm submitting their qualifications as well as the agency's reviewers?
So absolutely, again, thank you, Jorge. Thank you for just this opportunity to come tell our story. Thank you to HACIA and everyone that's joining us today to be able to kind of allow us to tell our story. And the story at Cook County is that, we truly have been evolving over the years. Just under Madam President Preckwinkle's leadership, there was really no, this conversation wasn't even really had when I first got to Cook County under her leadership, because we weren't selecting consultants. And so all I did at that time was just bring a little bit of institutional knowledge of how my team here would be able to understand what goes into the consultant selection process, and tried to be as transparent as we can, fair in our efforts, and really adopted the CDOT model, which works real successful. But we're not awarding a lot of those consultant projects, so it was easy at that time. Things have changed, and I know this is something that once again was an area that we really look closely at. The QBS process and the state approval of that based on the federal mandate required us to kind of be a little cautious as to how we were going to proceed with that. But once again, we said we were going to continue to revisit this. And again, thank you, Senator Vittle-Villam and Representative Chairman Evans, on your leadership of bringing us to a new day of money that's going to really be there in a kind of sustainable way, where we have to come up with new ways of doing things. And I will, definitely guarantee you that we are going to look real closely at that at Cook County, because of, again, those dozens and dozens of opportunities that have been brought to us because of, again, this capital bill and the leadership in Springfield. So we absolutely are. And we know that, again, I'm not thinking necessarily the other counties around Cook County's formula might work, but somewhere a balance between what CDOT, the tollway, IDOT, is doing, we think we could make this a much more efficient process.
Thank you, John. And you touched upon a good point there, and we actually had a this question for both chairmen, because it is regards to the Capitol bill. I know Secretary Osmond mentioned it as well, but here's the question, Senator Representative. With the new Capitol bill plan moving forward, there is some concern from the marketplace or consultant industry that the planning and rollout of these projects will be delayed because of this downturn in the economy, i.e. less motor fuel tax, since we're not driving as much or have not been driving as much as a result of the pandemic. Is there a concern for this, or are we just being overly cautious? So either Chairman Villalobos, if you want to start.
Thank you. It's a great question. And, look, again, we have the experts here, and I think, timing is everything. So if you asked this question in March, April, and May, you probably would have gotten a different answer than you're getting now, which is, it seems to me that we have, slowly but surely recovered in terms of the revenue that has been garnered from the gas tax increase and gas tax overall. And I believe, and Mr. Secretary Osmond can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're close to 80 to 90% of what we were receiving before, and so that is a cause for confidence and restoration in terms of the faith that we have in terms of implementing the capital plan. There's no question that we will have to continue to monitor that. And make sure that we're able to follow that through. That being said, there's and you just saw my wife go by with our 2-year-old, so hopefully he's still sleeping after this, once you put him down. But that being said, I think I will take this opportunity to highlight another concern, which is look, there's no question that IDOT and all the other agencies on this call are working tremendously hard to implement this capital plan. And they're going to need to do everything they can, because this is a large capital plan and we're under dire circumstances. With all of that said, I will be the first to say that we need to look at staffing at IDOT. We need to give them the staff that they need to implement this plan. And part of that is making sure we look at compensation for those positions that are available, because the more people they have, the better opportunity they will have to implement this plan. So that is more of a concern for me than the gas tax revenue at this point.
Awesome. Okay. I hear you, and I really appreciate it. I think the membership really appreciates that confidence builder. Chairman Evans, did you want to chime in on that as well?
Yeah, and just I was just got off a call with the education folks, Chicago board right now. Of course, all the concerns about education. And when you talk about transportation, they are concerns. I think we can't discount that we're going through a pandemic now. Everybody wants things to be back to normal and perfect, but that's just not the reality of life. I just think in the transportation space, me and Senator Ron, as we go through the budget, we can understand that dollars in education, for example, are revealed at some point. But we got to get folks back to work. This recovery is going to take working. It's going to take folks paying personal income tax, whatever the hell that rate is going to have to take commerce and activity. And the transportation industry creates that. So I think, we're going to have to make some strong, tough decisions to give Omar what he needs to get the capital bill rolling. And, I think it's going to be tough. And everybody's going to be clamoring in different agencies. But we got to understand that, most dollars that we spend out make the world a better place. But transportation dollars and investment create other opportunities and what we're going to need during the recovery. So I think investment in transportation is going to be a big part of the recovery. And we're going to have to stand firm in that with more limited resources temporarily.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Chairman Evans. Next question, shifting gears a little bit. We want to welcome Jose Alvarez from the Tollway. Jose, here's the question. Could you provide a status on the progress for the I-490 Elgin O'Hare Western Bypass?
Sure. So good afternoon, everyone. I want to start out by thanking you, Jorge, and Ivan Solis for your leadership and the partnership that you've always had with the Tollway. It's much appreciated. So thank you for that. I think Secretary Osmond and my other colleagues talked about we're in a historic time for a number of reasons, right? You have the pandemic going on. We have this huge capital bill for the first time. But I think if you take a step back, it's also historic across Illinois because of the rich diversity that the governor has brought to a lot of the agencies, especially in this industry, right? For us, I can speak for the tollway. You have obviously the first African-American chairman of the board in tollway history. You know, I'm the first Latino as the executive director, serving as executive director. And then we have a great board of directors here at the tollway that represent that diversity across the different segments of the industry, right? So you have to give credit to not only Governor Pritzker for his commitment to the industry, but obviously also Deputy Governor Mitchell. So I had to put that out there just because I can tell you that they're definitely committed to diversity. I know Representative Evans and I, go way back, and I appreciate his leadership and his commitment. And then Representative Villavalum, just started working with him, but I can tell you that he is committed to the work that we do as well. So getting back to 490, as you know, this year, we finally were able to execute agreements with the railroads. This is something that has been in the works for decades, right? And even under the pandemic, Cranes Chicago called it something worth celebrating, right? Because it is something that the industry and the region has waited for. So we're now working closely with CDA, with O'Hare and the FAA, but things are on schedule and we're moving forward. But we're happy to report that we did finally execute the agreements with the railroad companies.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go back to a question, but actually ask it now to CDOT. So welcome, Commissioner Biaggi. And it's in regards to the public agencies using a two-step process to solicit proposals from consultants. Again, typically there's an initial letter of interest, then followed by a more detailed proposal only from the shortlisted teams. Would CDOT be interested in considering a similar process, which is, we argue, could save time for firms in their submitting their qualifications, as well as for the agency to review?
Great. Well, thank you for the question. But first off, thank you for having us here as well, along with Deputy Dan Burke, who's on the line with us as well. I have to say thank you to HACIA. I think when I first started, way back before COVID, can you imagine that? It's about 10 months ago. HACIA was one of the first industry groups that I sat down with, and I thought it was a really instructive meeting, really setting up the context for me to think about what we're doing with minority contracting and what we're doing in terms of making investments, not only in our infrastructure, but in the companies that deliver that. So thank you for your teamwork and leadership. And I also, speaking of teamwork, I have to say thanks to my colleagues on the call, whether that's Secretary Osmond or our friends at the tollway and the county. I don't know if you know, but Secretary Osmond makes sure that we get on the line once a week and talk to each other and communicate and really understand what's going on in our different realms. And I think the last big thank you is to the state for the rebuild funding. It's a dramatic change for us to be able to count on that kind of funding. We've always had good relationships, but it enables us to do more of what we have. And I hope you ask me about the capital plan that we just announced in Chicago. So I'll let you have that be a follow-up. But I think in terms of, I think last year in this conversation, how we announced professional service selections and two-step processes were questions that were asked. We obviously do have a two-step process in terms of how you described, and that's something that we're working with procurement services all the time on trying to make things streamlined. One of the things that we did, we do have the rankings of our respondents for RFQs and Ps and task orders that's now up online. So if you go to chicagodot.org, you can find the list. It's under procurement news. But I think the bigger question here, which is how do we deliver, right? So between the capital bill from the state, between what we've just announced here in Chicago, delivery is everything. And so we've been working on what does recovery through infrastructure look like? What is the streamlining that we need to do so our consultants and our contractors can do the work they need to do, but in-house, that we're not our own worst enemy when it comes to getting projects out the door. So we're doing a lot of work looking at all of our processes to streamline things.
Actually, and that's great to hear. And yeah, as a follow-up, definitely, if you can speak more on the city's capital bill or capital
Yeah.
plan as well, that would be great. I think for everyone here, I know the press release went out, but if you could speak more to it, that'd be great.
It's a big deal. We realize we have to do our part. And, in addition to the rebuild funds and what we might get from the feds, and we can cross our fingers on that. But we recognize, and Mayor Lightfoot really led the way here to say it's not enough for us to live, hand to mouth locally in terms of investing in our infrastructure. We have more than $5 billion worth of need, and that's just to get things from a poor to fair condition to like decent and good. And so what we announced today is that we'll be issuing GO bonds for a $3.7 billion infrastructure program. The lion's share of that is transportation. It's bridges, it's viaducts, it's streets, it's lighting, it's complete streets. It's this combination of hitting the meat and potatoes and catching up for the decades that we have not been keeping pace and getting our infrastructure not only to a state of good repair, but like a reasonable replacement cycle. But then it also allows us to have the leverage to connect with things like intermodal projects to make sure that where economic development is happening, we can do that viaduct clearance that we need to do to get trucks through. So it's a combination of where we can now get to the opportunities for prosperity in our city, but then we can also rectify not only the disinvestment that we need to catch up with, but also what that means in terms of racial equity across our city and economic development in neighborhoods that have, let's say, wards so big they can never catch up with just a little bit of menu money every year. So it's super exciting. We have a press release. I'm happy to forward that in the chat. But please keep your eyes and ears open. That's a lot of work that's coming out of Chicago.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, and for full disclosure and for on the record, HACIA members, I testified at this morning's Finance Committee in support of this. When I mentioned it to the board, they said absolutely, and clearly it makes sense for all of us that we'd be very supportive of this because obviously it opens up more opportunities. And it's also going to be open to more opportunities for our members and other MWBE firms as well in Chicago. And as you said, because it's sorely needed. I mean, the fact that we have this need. I did go on record also requesting it to be $5 billion.
Yes, I heard you this morning. And
I wanted
$5 billion.
Yeah, and part of it is for selfish reasons because I live in the 10th ward and we need those bridges to be in state of good repair. But clearly there's other bridges in Chicago that need that as well. And those are big ticket items. And so, and ultimately it provides other opportunities and larger opportunities for our members in that space as well. So we're happy to be supportive of that. And we definitely look forward to working with you on that. So
and thank you for your support today.
Absolutely. Let me get to another question in terms of the county and John or Sis. What are the county's efforts on compliance and inclusion of minority firms? I mean, could you give us a quick update on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you again, Jorge, for having us and HACIA. When we think about compliance and inclusion of minority firms, this is extremely important to us. We really look at this infusion of funds as being an opportunity, for us to be better and do better. And we know that it's not the same mouths that need to get fed. We have a rigorous process through our procurement office that is vetting the compliance. It goes beyond a goal. You actually need to execute. You have to demonstrate your desire for further inclusion within this work. It is up to us as the agency to make sure we're putting out those right size, right type projects that allow that increased inclusion into our work. There are many firms that we've spoken with, minority owners, that how do we get work with you? How do we know that you're going to be putting out something that is right for us? And it's making sure that we're bundling projects in a good way, kind of thinking back to a question that was asked already, a number of single solicitations with, of the process that we have, may not be optimal, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're allowing that opportunity, because without opportunity, there isn't inclusion. We continue to have that challenge to all those seeking to do business with us, to make sure that you're expanding your network, to include additional firms in it, to give them that exposure to work with the county so that they can build up that profile and resume to go on and be a prime, not always to serve as a subcontractor or a subconsultant on work. That is our effort. The goal that we have set with 34% is something that we think is working. When it comes to the department's task order contracts, that's something that we monitor very closely because it is that of a various scope. But this is something that we are absolutely committed to, and we've seen great numbers that have come through, countywide. We spoke earlier about how John is moving over to the other side of infrastructure on the vertical side. and there continues to be a great story there, but it's how the two of us as counterparts on horizontal and vertical need to ensure that our compliance officer and our chief procurement officer have the opportunity to make good on that commitment that we've set out.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, sis. Next question is for the tollway, Jose, or anyone from Team Tollway. Can you provide an update on the current operations, traffic volume, revenue, and personnel as a result of the COVID-19?
Sure. And, I called Senator Villalob's representative, so my apologies, Senator, earlier. But so obviously, back in March, right before the pandemic hit, we were hitting our numbers above forecast. So our traffic, both commercial and passenger, were coming in above forecast. So we were all looking forward to having a great year from the revenue point of view. But then when the pandemic hit, we went as low as 55% below forecast for passenger vehicles. And then we were hitting about 25% below forecast, 25% below forecast for commercial vehicles. Since then, the commercial vehicles have come back to current levels of our forecast. So that's been a great help to us. And then our passenger vehicles are still running at about 20% below forecast. We anticipate, we're forecasting that we're going to be coming in at about 270 million short of our 2020 forecast. But I think the one thing that's important, Jorge, and I think some of your members will share this with you, is that we did not stop with our capital program. All right, we have folks like Paul Kovacs and his team, Terry and others that just kept their foot on the gas. We continued our capital program for 2020, and in fact, the highest dollar value that's been awarded in the history of the Move Illinois plan that started in 2012 was in 2014, where we awarded $1.1 billion. This year, by the time this year comes to an end, because we're on the same thing as a fiscal year is aligned with our calendar year, we're going to be at $1.5 billion. So what that says is that, yes, we had a rough year, right, from our revenues, but we're committed to the program. We're committed to keeping folks working. And we are going to come in at one of the highest award years in the tollway history, period, not just Move Illinois. So thank you.
Thank you, Jose. All right, I got a question for Omar, Secretary Osman, or anyone at Team IDOT. Would IDOT modify the invoicing monitoring system to allow subs to monitor the subs? Sorry. Would IDOT modify the invoicing monitoring system to allow subs to monitor the prime's invoicing and payment schedules? Payment and invoicing schedules are vary significantly among primes. That makes it very difficult for subs to manage cash flow.
Jorge, that's a good question. But before I get there, a couple of things. First of all, I do appreciate what Chairman Villalob's and Chairman Evans have said earlier. Listen, without and also what Jose just talked about, without the transportation sector, I could not imagine how long the unemployment line would have been. I could tell you from the department perspective, only this year, early on in and around April or May, we had over 1,000, literally 1,016 active contracts. And I'm talking about construction contract. And you can imagine how many contractors, how many engineers, how many technicians, how many trade people have been out there. And that's literally hundreds and hundreds of people whom they didn't have to go to the unemployment line because of the pandemic. So just to say that transportation is a lifeline for our recovery, that's absolutely true. And you only have to look at what the industry and transportation industry had done in 2020. Also, Chairman Villalob's, I do appreciate your comment about IDOT staffing. I do appreciate your recognition about the salary and the salary disparity. That's an issue that's out there for the department. We have to acknowledge that. We have to address it. And I do appreciate your support. to talk about the invoicing. True. I'm open to it. We have been speaking with our IT folks, trying to line up something similar, almost similar to what the construction side of IDOT is doing. If you go to the construction side, there is almost a website that shows you each and every contract, and possibly when did the prime contractor actually get paid, when were their last pay estimates, so to speak. And that is something I'm trying to create on the consultant side. Yes, it's all about the cash flow. Without that cash flow, I know especially the smaller one, and especially the DBU ones, cannot survive. One thing that was kind of positive, if we could ever talk about anything positive in 2020, is the fact that we have managed to expedite the payment with the electronic signature. I hope each and every HACIA member, ACEC member is taking advantage of that we are pushing the electronic payment. We no longer, have to wait weeks and weeks for that payment to happen, and it's working out great for us. We hope for that to continue down the road after COVID-19 goes away. We hope for that system to continue. And yes, just to answer you directly, I am open to it, and that's something I would like to see IDOT doing in the near future, hopefully.
Thank you, Secretary. All right, another question here is in regards to, if you could keep it here with Secretary Osmond. Currently, consultant responses are scored according to the criteria defined in the advertisement of the professional patient bulletin. Would the item scoring be shared with the submitting firm so that they can try to improve scoring on future bulletin responses?
Oh, that's a great question, and it's not a new question. That is, and I think Chairman Velavam alluded to it as part of the transparency effort that he typically talks about, and him and I talk, at least once a week, it seems to be, and we talk about a lot of issues, and this is one of them. Listen, that's an important question. I do recognize that if somebody's not getting selected, they would want to know why not. If I were in their shoes, I would be thinking the same. There are two issues we have to be mindful of. Yes, I think about 3-4 years ago is when we started in our advertisement doing the particulars of what we're gonna evaluate each and every consultant on, and that is in line with the FARS, in line with Brooks Law and the federal mandate. So we managed to do that where the consulting industry is focusing on the deliverable of each and every item on the bulletin. There are close to 400 pre-qualified consultants through the department, 400. And a lot of them do submit on our bulletin. We do have 4 bulletins a year, as you all know. And each and every one of them is got, on the average, about 40, maybe 50 with the new capital bill. That is a large volume of SOIs, a statement of interest for us, for my staff, to go through, and it takes a long, long time for them to evaluate each and every one of them and to articulate, the number 1, number 2, number 3 pick the way they see, based on their evaluation. Am I open to sitting down with an engineering firm who hasn't been selected in a while to go through their SOI and to discuss it in an open manner? Yes, I am. I just need us to be mindful that it's going to be a little bit of a hardship for us personnel-wise to do it after each and every PTB. As you can imagine, if we have 50 items, there are 50 consultants who have been selected, and there's probably 250 or 300 consultants who has not been selected. That volume-wise, that is going to be prohibitive for us to go through each and every one of those SOIs and to discuss with each and every consultant, and then at the same time trying to handle our day-to-day operation. But if we could structure a way for us to sit down with each and every consultant, provided provided that they haven't been selected in a while, say in 6, 7, 8 tries, then we could do that. But to do it on each and every PT after each and every PTB, I think is going to be a little bit prohibitive for us. So that's a yes. That's a yes answer.
Thank you, Secretary. All right, I'll go back to Team Cook County. So Superintendent Killen or anyone from the team there, can you provide an update on the Invest in Cook grant program? And are there any opportunities for planning and design for minority firms?
Okay, Jorge, thank you very much for that question. The Invest in Cook program is really a hallmark for the county. It was the direct initiative out of our long-range transportation plan, and we've seen great success with it. As we look at the results, the outcomes over the last 4 years, this has been a tool that we've used to really broaden our portfolio of projects. You know, we had moved away from the traditional roads and bridges that we're making our investments in. And I think that alone opens the door to opportunity for both planning and design services, because again, we're trying to have that broadened portfolio, that perspective for different businesses and disciplines. 17 transit projects, 26 freight projects, 52 bike ped projects, and then 33 roadway projects. But we have created significant leverage opportunities with this program. So with the near $33 million that we've invested in it to date over the last 4 years, it has leveraged about $78 million worth of infrastructure. So we think that speaks volumes in terms of opportunity. We also know that with the Invest in Cook program, we have seen some of our communities who used to come to us, can you lead this project? Would you take it on? We've worked so closely with them. We've helped build their internal capacity, which was another goal of this program. And then they too are releasing their own procurement. So we continue to look for ways to get that pipeline of projects moving through, because for every project that enters the planning or preliminary engineering phase, you're better positioned to get those design or construction dollars. And they're not only coming from the county, they're also coming from all of the municipalities that we are partnering with in this initiative. So, again, I think that's great additional opportunities. The answer is always yes, yes, and yes. Back to the earlier statements that we want to see that diversity in the team making. We need that diversity and perspective so we can acknowledge not just what the facility is, what does it do, and who does it serve. So with that formula, you can't go wrong.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. Commissioner Biaggi, question for CDOT. Is there an updated organizational chart for CDOT, especially in the light of new appointments and promotions?
Yes, there is. You can go to chicagodot.org and it should be online.
Okay. Excellent.
That's an easy one. Come on.
Easy one. All right, so I'll go over to Jose and the Tollway. Could you provide a list of the members of the selection committee, and how are the members of the selection committee selected? Does a member of the Tollway Diversity Group participate in the selection committee?
Yeah, so let me take a quick step back here. So one of the things that one of our top priorities here, right? It's really improving on our diversity participation. Although we've done a great job historically, what we saw initially was that on the contract compliance side of the house, we had a third party doing contract compliance for the agency. So we brought that function in-house. So now you have Tollway employees conducting the contract compliance of all contracts here at the Tollway. What we did with the evaluation committee was we added contract compliance and diversity to the team from the very beginning to the end. So you start out with the contract compliance folks looking at the scope of work from whatever department we're getting the scope of work from, and then coming up with the diversity goals based on our disparity study. But then they stay on as evaluators throughout the entire process. The same thing for diversity, right? So what diversity is looking for is looking to make sure that those diversity plans meet our goals and that it's what we're looking for. On the contract compliance side of the house, what we have there is we want to make sure that historically these contractors have been in compliance or are in good standing. Those are the two sort of areas that we've improved. The rest of it remains the same, but we'll definitely get you a breakdown of exactly who else is on the evaluation committee. We obviously want to make sure that we have a good mix of people. The bulk of the individuals, the majority of the individuals are the experts in that field. for whatever that field is, right? So we want to make sure that we have, folks like, Paul and others that are the experts in that area. And then we add other individuals from the agency that can also bring value to it.
Commissioner Biaggi, I'll go back to you. Actually, I did want to follow up on a question. When we met earlier this year, you talked about two things. One is creating a standard of excellence in engineering for CDOT and a standard in construction. I wanted to see if it's progressed any further or if there's some help with that you need. We'd really love to be involved in that or through our professional services committee on the engineering side.
No,
Any comments on?
Yeah, I do. And so one of the things that we've been doing in-house over the last couple of months, really, we launched a strategic planning effort internally to say, okay, we know how we do what we do, but can we do it better? And so to set up goals and strategies and tactics and metrics toward achieving some of the big picture things we'd like to do. But that also includes some of these kind of, how do we reset our standards, whether that's for, how we design, a green alley, or whether that's for what we're requiring developers to do through the plan development process. So internally, we've launched a design excellence committee that is working through looking at all of our specifications. We would love your help. I think we'll be at a good point maybe in the next month or two where we can begin to start talking about, here's what we're seeing, because we're certainly challenged with, I think the green alley is a great example where, it's become a highly engineered kind of thing. It's very hard to do many of them in a systemic way. And so it's probably ripe for a redesign or rethink. Technologies have changed, or older technologies like, just percolation can through bricks and that sort of thing is like an easier mode that we should look at. So yes, so design excellence and construction excellence is something that we've been working toward, and we'll be hopefully next quarter talking more about our strategic planning work. And you asked me earlier about the organization chart, and I gave you a pretty direct answer in a web link, but I think I do want to say that we've had some really exciting new folks join our organization that org chart should reflect. Particularly, we have a new head of electrical operations, Craig Turner, who actually was a consultant working with us on our lighting program, and it came away from the dark side, came to the light, to the city side, just joking, but who's like an incredible example of how, working hand in glove with all of the consultant world that helps us deliver our programs, we're actually able to anchor that kind of knowledge on both sides of that fence in-house. And so that's been a great move. We've had promotions in our in-house construction. Mike Drake is now leading that. We've had added folks to some of our teams that deliver our menu program, which is kind of the aldermanic program. And so I think what's exciting about that is we've been able to bring some additional diversity into our senior ranks. But then also we're getting that expertise, again, that's both institutional, but also the marketplace's expertise. Coming from the consultant world very recently myself, I can see how it's important to have a good handle on both sides of that fence.
Thank you, Commissioner Biaggi. Go over to the Cook County Superintendent Killen. IDOT and Tollway have put together look-ahead schedules to give consultants an idea of upcoming consulting opportunities and advertisements. Would the Cook County Department of Highways be willing to provide a quarterly or bi-yearly forecast like this?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So annually, our procurement office puts out a buying plan. So that should be available on the Chief Procurement Officer's website right now. If it's not, it'll be coming on we close out our fiscal year in a week and a half. So hopefully get budget approval next week. But we are looking at having a semi-annual release of that document. So right now we don't know that we're able to do the quarterly updates that you're seeking, but the semi-annual update is something that we are proactively working on right now. So that would identify the Q4 release.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Question for the tollway, and I guess this will also go over to IDOT as well. Could you provide us an update or status on the Mentor Protege program? And does the tollway still receive good participation with Mentor Protege teams?
You know what? That's one of the probably the best programs when it comes to supporting small minority women-owned businesses and veteran-owned businesses. We probably have one of the best ones here at the tollway from most agencies across the state. For us, we've been really successful We have about 160 participants in the professional services area that are taking part in the P4G. And then, although we're not doing as much as we want to do on the construction side, we're also, we have about 12 current partnerships. So it's working. That's an area that we would definitely want to invest more in, and we appreciate the industry for their participation and willingness to really get behind the intent of the P4G program.
All right. IDOT, Secretary Osmond, or anyone from your team?
Yes. On the mentor project, specifically on the engineering side, we do identify with that. We encourage it, and you'll see that on each and every advertisement. You know, some of the items you will actually see it prominently displayed there that IDOT is encouraging mentor project on this specific item. Having said that, this is an area that I have asked the staff to look into, because I do think there is a room for improvement on our side. I could tell you this through some of the mentor project program back about 7-8 years ago, 2012, 2013, we used to have around 13 or 14 kind of work category or pre-qualification category that didn't have any DBE, you know, pre-qualified to do it. So we tried, you know, throughout the year to break down some of these barriers through mentor protege and through us looking at the specific pre-qualification requirement and try and break it into simple category, complex, and typical and simple categories. We managed to reduce that 13 or 14 work categories down to around 5 or 6 right now. And those are, you know, for example, hazardous waste. That's a complex issue. Typically, you don't see any DBEs doing that type of work. The paint inspection, especially on the construction side, I don't even think there is a consultant in the state of Illinois. Typically, we use consultants from outside Ohio and a couple of other states that they have the expertise in this kind of work. And my goal is to look at these 6 or 7 categories and try and see if a mentor protege is the way to go, so we could get our own in the state of Illinois pre-qualified to do some of this work. And not only the mentor protege, try and look at the pre-qualification and see if there is a way for us to break it down and make that accessible to our state of Illinois consulting firms.
Thank you, Secretary. Commissioner Biaggi, any comment on the CDOT's mentor protege?
Yeah, we've had a mentor protege program in place since 2018. We've got a couple of contracts that are participating right now, like our bridge inspection program, a number of firms that are participating. It's been really successful for us. And, you know, I think it's also kind of a lead up to something we launched this past year, which was a target market program for exclusively minority or women-owned firms for both design and for construction management. So on the design side, we've got, I think, about 24 firms in that pool, and another 20 to 23 in the construction management pool. And these are, you know, contracts to about, you know, I think the cap is about 10 million. It's an exclusive pool of minority contractors. And the idea, right, is that we want minority contractors to be primes bidding on projects. And that's been a very successful program, and we finally got it launched. And so we're looking forward to helping those firms transition from a program like that to being primes on projects all over the city. So it's pretty exciting. If you're not in it, we're happy to provide some information about how to get in that program.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. And Superintendent Killen, any update on the mentor protege at the county?
Yeah, so this is something that we are considering. We know we've been, you know, speaking to several members of your membership about it, and we're looking for those opportunities that exist within the 4 corners of our procurement ordinance. And while we don't have a formal mentor protege program today, you know, is that something that we are looking at when we're receiving RFQs and looking at your unique approach and teaming? That is something that we are looking for. You know, we are looking for that diversity, that inclusion, really that investment to be made. back to my earlier statement that, if we want to provide that growth and capacity opportunity for firms who, are new to the space or maybe trying to branch out, we recognize this as being one of those great opportunities for them. So we are looking at ways that we could potentially formalize it, but that is something that we are starting to see a little bit more of as, requests for quals come in really from, members of this community who are really embracing it and wanting to see it advance.
Thank you, Superintendent. We got time for a couple more questions. Very quickly, Team IDOT, Secretary Osmond, are target market opportunities under consideration at IDOT for professional services?
Oh, that's a good question. Historically, we haven't done that on the professional surface. We might have done that a couple of times on the construction site. Typically, this is because of the federal regulation and the FARs and FHWA stipulation. For you to go target market, you must have a disparity study, and which we do every 4 years. And there must be a clear finding of egregious discrimination for you to hone in on a particular area and try and address that. And one of the ways to address egregious discrimination is the target market principle. Having said that, historically, we have been very successful on the consulting side in as far as being fair and equitable to all the consultants who are pre-qualified with us. I could tell you this, for example, if you look at the DBEs, the number of consultants who are DBEs who are pre-qualified with IDOT, they represent around almost 29%. Of the registered consultant with the department. Yet, if you look at what we have pushed out in term of PTBs and item, we pushed out close to $450 million worth of work only in 2020. Out of the 450 million, almost 34% of it went to DBE contractors. So you could almost look at, number of DB consultants who are pre-qualified with us is close to 30, 1/3, and almost, a little over 1/3 of the contracting dollar is going to DB. So from that perspective, I think we're doing a good job, and we're gonna try and expand on that and try and keep that momentum going. But to answer you directly, we're not looking at a target market program for the technical side.
Thank you, Secretary. Jose and folks at the tollway, small design companies have difficulties becoming prime consultants, as we all know, in tollway projects. Could the tollway include the PSB small design projects that small size companies could have the opportunity to submit as primes?
Yeah, so let me take this opportunity to really thank industry because when we first arrived here on the professional services side, we were doing pretty good as far as diversity participation, right? We were at about 32% in 2019. This year to date, we're at 62% diversity participation compared to 38 non-diverse. That's for the entire 2020 year. On the construction services side, we went up a little bit. We went up from 21% to 26%. But we also know that we want the small firms to come in and get that experience and get the opportunity to compete as primes, right? So what we did this year alone is we unbundled, which is really right-sizing the job so that small and medium-sized firms can compete for the work so that they have that experience directly with the tollway. We did about 77 contracts that we unbundled, just so that the small and diverse firms can compete. We're gonna continue to do that, right? Not just on the professional services side, but also on the construction side. That's a huge barrier for the small firms to serve as primes. We're committed, right? Jorge and my colleagues will tell you, we're all committed to doing it. We're also making sure that, we walk the walk. So we're willing to put the resources, we're willing to put whatever support we need from our end, we're gonna do it. But again, 77 unbundled contracts this year. We're gonna continue to unbundle contracts next year. And in addition, what I'll say is not so much for the professional services side, but just last month, our board of directors approved an owner insurance program. And what that means is that one of the huge barriers for contractors on the construction side is getting, general liability insurance, right? That's a huge barrier. And what we're going to do with some of the unbundled projects next year is those projects are going to be released as projects under this program, so that the small and medium-sized contractor, so they don't have to worry about, going out and buying their own general liability insurance. It's cost neutral to the tollway, right? Because they usually include that line in their bid. So that's just removing another barrier for folks to compete. We can't, like Secretary Osman just mentioned earlier, we can't hand people work. You just cannot. But what we're doing and what we can do is leveling the playing field so that small and diverse firms can compete. So again, yes to your question, and we're going to continue to do more. So thanks for asking that question.
Thank you, Jose. We have come to the end of the Q&A, and we need to transition over so we can do the one-on-ones. But I do want to let the panelists know that we've got about 3 or 4 questions that we will not be able to get to. What I do want to do is be able to send those to you via email. And if you could give us an answer, we can get it to all the attendees who are on this afternoon. I want to make sure we get that to them, but also to you as well. But we want to be respectful of time and get the program going here. So just be on the lookout for that email from me. But at this point, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be transitioning from the panel. So I want to thank all of our panelists who joined us today. And I started off saying, Team Tollway, Team CDOT, Team Cook County Highways, right, and Team CDOT. And IDOT. One day we'll have a softball game when we're able to hang out again, and we'll host a tournament via HACIA somewhere. But I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon and for enjoying this part of the program. We appreciate our panelists this afternoon. We do want to take some questions. Am I hearing that correctly, Chris, from the audience? So give me a second here. We do have some questions in the Q&A. CDOT spoke of more transparency in the procurement process. Where can we find the rankings, and can we specifically see the breakdown of the scoring? So Commissioner Biaggi?
Yeah, we're providing the rankings. I know this was a question from last year. It should be under procurement news on our chicagodot.org. So it's got the rankings of respondents and also the task orders for that target market program I was talking about.
Gotcha. Okay, another question here from the audience. Have the number of waivers granted to primes decreased when they fail to meet minority participation goals? How do agencies plan to enforce these sanctions for prime contractors who fail to meet the scoring standards that adversely impact minority participation? So I think that's open to any one of our panelists.
So this is on the engineering side. I have yet to see a waiver we have granted throughout my entire career at the department. Typically, because the engineering one takes about 3 to sometimes 10 years to complete the entire contract, and so there is the time there for the prime to typically deliver on what they committed to, and as far as the DBE goal that's assigned to that particular contract. On the construction side, it's a bit different because of the change in quantities and and what physically takes place out in construction. Things may change. The requirement of the contract might change. The job limit might change. We do change the work type as we go along throughout the contract. So that's where you might see a little bit of a waiver situation. But even on those, I mentioned earlier, there's over 1,000 contract we have had this year. There's possibly 2 contracts we looked into a waiver situation. So it's very, very minimal. And this is kudos to the industry, actually, to the prime contractors and to prime consultant for helping us out with minimizing the number of waivers.
Okay. Anyone else want to chime in?
I'm happy to chime in on that. So at the county, those of you who have worked with our or our Officer of Contract Compliance, getting waivers is not an easy thing. We really do hold true to our good faith effort to ensure the goals are being met. Similar to what Secretary Osmond had said, that we do not see these coming in on the professional service side. We see more of the waivers are requested on the contractor side. And again, we have had some bids that go out where, you know, they are the low bid, but because they are unable to meet the goal, we have moved on and gone on to the second bid because they did not demonstrate that good faith effort. So I think that shows, you know, in hard dollars and cents, you know, the county's commitment to ensuring when a goal is set out, one that you know, that is adhered to in your bid, but also as we go through the project and getting through to completion, we are taking note of that, and that can have adverse impact if you do not meet your contract goal for your next project solicitation.
Yeah, and from Chicago's perspective, from the city's perspective, definitely if you've worked with us, you know we have an extensive documentation process. It's very closely scrutinized. You know, we're close to zero, I think 0 in terms of planning design, and I think we're maybe almost at 0 for our construction contracts. So it trends the same way that you've heard from our friends at the county and IDOT.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the tollway goes, we take every waiver request very seriously, and you know, we make sure that we do the proper review. We haven't received a waiver request on the professional services side, and I think we've received 1 or 2 on the construction side of the house, and we've denied the 1 or 2 waivers that came before us. And but yeah, industry has been great on both sides in meeting their goals.
All right. All right, and I think this is the final question. Christina, is this the final question? Would IDOT and CDOT consider mentor-protege agreements where the protege, MWDBE firm, can serve as a prime instead of the current structure where the protege is required to act as a sub-consultant? The Illinois Tollway program was highly successful in building MWDBE firms capacity with this type of arrangement.
That's a really interesting suggestion. I'd be happy to connect with IDOT and we can talk it through if that's something we could do. Super interesting. It's a great idea.
And I'd be happy to have a discussion with the commissioner on that. No, I'm open to it, and I think that's an interesting concept. Would love to see what the tollway how they have structured it, and see if it's going to work for us. And you know, I always say everything is on the table. Let's see what is good, you know, for our DBEs, and what's good for our smaller consulting firm and contracting firm. And if it's good for them, it's good for our industry, it's good for our agencies too. So I'm more than open to look through it.
Thank you, Secretary. Okay, so this is the last question for sure, I'm being told here. What is each agency's stance on virtual meet and greet meetings to introduce our firms to agency staff? How would we schedule this type of meeting if allowed?
I'll go first. I mean, we're open to it. Right? We do it every day. So all you have to do is just reach out to the individual office. If you get any, you know, if you get any pushback or any roadblocks, just reach out to me directly. But we're definitely open, and we do it every day already.
Okay.
And you're gonna hear Jorge, you're gonna hear the same from us. As I mentioned, there are, you know, 5 regional engineers, 9 districts. Each and every one of them have already conducted multiple, you know, electronic kind of Zoom meeting, and they are good at it right now, and they are open. I think if you call each and every district, and the phone number and the contact info is online, they'll be more than receptive to meeting with you, especially if you are new, if they don't know much about you, if you haven't done any work in that area, they would love to hear from you.
Yeah, and we get requests probably every 10 minutes. We're happy to try to accommodate as many as we can. And my buddy Dan Burke on the line, you know, you can certainly go to him directly, but I'm happy to meet. You know, one of the things that I ask though is if you're a company that is not in MBE or WBE and wants to meet with me, I would encourage you to bring an MBE, WBE with you to that meeting. That is a way to get folks to the table that may not typically go for access or have access, but that would be a great reason for us to meet, that you can introduce us to firms that don't typically have a seat at the table. So I know that's sharing a little bit of the access, but that might be a way that we can expand the network of minority firms that have access.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah, excellent response. I know that when it comes to engagements with the county, our practice has been when we have active solicitations on the street, that we weren't hosting meetings. Now, the good side of where we are today is that we have received more money as part of the Rebuild Illinois Capital Bill. So thank you to Representative Evans and to Senator Villalon for allowing us to be in this position. The downside of this is that we constantly have a solicitation on the street now because we are advancing those pipelines of projects across all phases. So we actually are in conversations with our chief procurement officer right now that how can we create those opportunities where we've said we typically can't have them because we are in a very good positive space, but we want to maintain those relations. And we understand that doing so in a virtual environment really creates additional burden and hardship, but we are committed to creating a structure that allows that kind of contact because it's necessary for the agency. It's necessary for all the firms involved as well.
Thank you, Superintendent. All right, Chris, are we now transitioning over? All right. So that brings us to the end of our panel discussion and questions. Again, I want to thank our panelists from IDOT, Secretary Osmond, thank you very much. Also want to thank Region 1 Engineer Tony Quigley. Thank you very much for joining us. From CDOT, Commissioner Gia Biaggi, also Deputy Commissioner Chief Engineer Dan Burke, and also First Deputy Tom Carney. From the Illinois Tollway, thank you very much, Executive Director Jose Alvarez, Paul Kovacs, who is the Chief Engineer, and also the Chief of Diversity and Strategic Development, Terry Miller. And also from the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways, thank you very much to new Superintendent Jennifer Killen. And also thank you very much to our always will be friend, John Yonan, who's moving over to the vertical side of the asset team over there at Cook County. So thank you very much to our panelists. I think this is a very engaging, very thoughtful discussion. So at this point, we're going to move over to the breakout session. Senator, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I just first and foremost wanted to thank you again, and I'm glad we had the experts on. I will say that this is probably one of the most well-run Zooms I've been on. So juggling, 12 or 14 panelists here. But I just wanted, on behalf of, if I could, on behalf of Chairman Evans and myself, thank you for having us. But also, I would like to put a call out to say, please reach out to us as on the legislative front. Look, we're continuing to work. I think Chairman Evans could probably say we are working harder than ever in terms of trying to solve some of the challenges that we have, and there's not a shortage of them. And so please reach out if you have thoughts on improvements that can be done and the legislation is needed for. We would love to hear from you in the next 6 to 8 weeks before we head into the next time we go down for session.
Absolutely, Chairman. I really appreciate that. And to you, HACIA members, we are picking up our legislative efforts and gearing up for next year. We were hoping we'd have something this week for veto session, but alas, we actually have to just tweak it a little bit for next year. We have 3 initiatives we want to push. And as Chairman Villalon has mentioned before, we definitely wanted to keep that conversation going with them. We've got some great ideas that we think will expand opportunities for you, our member, and obviously the larger industry. So if you want to get more involved in that, please get a hold of us. We do have a video going out to members probably early next week in regards to our legislative efforts as well. So we definitely will take you up on that, Chairman Villalon. And thank you for joining us as well. Just a quick little note to our professional service firms who are on, and also if there's contractors on as well, a quick little advertisement. We're going to be hosting an invitation-only session with a small not-for-profit that's looking for architectural and owner's rep services, a group called, actually I can't say the name yet, but be on the lookout for that. They've got some capital dollars coming to retrofit their offices. So be on the lookout. We're going to be hosting that on December 4th. So again, on behalf of, am I closing this here? On behalf of our board of directors and our professional services committee, I'm Jorge Perez. At this point, I'm going to switch over to Cristina and walk us through what the procedures are for the breakout session. They are full. They are all booked up. We had the time slots set up for that. So at this point, Chris, do I just hand it off to you? And how are we going to do this?
I'm gonna go. Let me join in on the webinar.
Hold on.
Yeah, I'm gonna go join in on the webinar. So we have time slots. They're all booked for all the agencies, but for those who did end up getting a time slot for the agency, there will be a separate email that's already been sent to you. And if you did not send that email, please let us know in the chat box and we'll forward you that email. It's going to be a separate Zoom meeting called one-on-one. So after this ends, jump on that link and we're going to put everyone in a waiting room and throw you in each room with your designated agency with the time slot you selected. So be on the lookout. If you did not receive that, we're going to send another invite to those who did register before the event. So I'm sorry, all the time slots are booked now, but if you want to talk more with the agency, just let us know and we'll connect you and send you their contact information. So that is it. I'll hand it over to Jorge Perez.
Great. Thanks, Christina. So again, in closing, thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of our board of directors, I want to thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much to you, HACIA members. Thank you for your support and your membership. We definitely look forward to talking with you, and please enjoy the one-on-ones that are coming up right after this. So again, on behalf of our board, thank you very much. I'm Jorge Perez. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you very soon. Take care.